The duffel bag hit my chest so hard I stumbled backward. Rain hammered the porch behind me, soaking through my socks as my father shoved my suitcase past the doorframe. His face was red, twisted with anger I'd seen building for weeks but never thought would explode like this. "You're 18 now," he said, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Mrs. Chen was already peeking through her curtains across the street. "You can fend for yourself." "Dad, please," I whispered, gripping the bag. My graduation cap was still sitting on the kitchen table behind him. "Finals started tomorrow. It's just one more month until." "One more month of your lies?" He stepped closer, and I saw my stepmother Doreen in the hallway shadows, arms crossed, saying nothing. "I saw the financial aid forms, Marina. You didn't list me as a parent. After everything I've done for you?" Everything he'd done. Like refusing to sign my FAFSA for 3 years. Like telling me college was a waste when I could work at his garage instead. Like making me beg for lunch money while Doreen got her nails done every week. "You taught me to be independent," I said quietly. He slammed the door in my face. The lock clicked. I stood there, shaking, as lightning split the sky. The rain soaked through my shirt. Neighbors watched from their porches. I looked back at the house once, water streaming down my face, and whispered words nobody could hear. "You'll regret this. My name is Marina Holt, and that night I learned what betrayal really means." If you're watching this video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching my revenge story from. I want to know how far it has traveled. I dragged my suitcase down Maple Street, wheels catching on every crack in the sidewalk. My phone had 13% battery and nowhere to charge it. The duffel bag strap dug into my shoulder. Everything I owned in the world fit into 2 pieces of luggage, and I didn't even have both hands free to wipe the rain from my eyes. The diner where I worked part-time was 6 blocks away. I'd been pulling double shifts there for months, saving every tip, every extra dollar. My manager Rosa had always been kind, letting me take home leftover bread, pretending not to notice when I ate my mistake orders in the back. When I reached the parking lot, my car looked smaller than I remembered. A 1998 Honda with rust spots and a passenger door that didn't lock. I'd bought it for $800 last year with money I'd earned scrubbing dishes. I threw my bags in the back seat and climbed behind the wheel. The rain drummed on the roof. My hands shook as I tried to start the engine. It coughed twice before catching. For a long moment, I just sat there, staring at the diner's neon sign through the streaked windshield. Rosie's Diner, open 24 hours. The letters buzzed and flickered. I reclined the driver's seat as far as it would go. It wasn't flat. It wasn't comfortable. But it was mine. Nobody could lock me out of my own car. I set my phone alarm for 5:30 a.m. School started at 7, and I had finals in English and calculus. I couldn't miss them. I'd worked too hard. Morning came with someone tapping on my window. I jerked awake, heart pounding, and saw Rosa holding a thermos and a paper bag. She gestured for me to roll down the window. "Rough night?" she asked, though her eyes said she already knew. I nodded, not trusting my voice. She handed me the thermos. "Coffee. Black, 2 sugars, just how you like it. And there's a breakfast burrito in the bag. You need to eat before those tests." "Rosa, I can't." "Yes, you can." She squeezed my shoulder through the window. "And Marina? The bathroom code is still 1-9-7-3. You can use it to clean up before school. Take your time." She walked back toward the diner, and I saw her wipe her eyes before she went inside. I drank the coffee in 3 long gulps, burning my tongue, not caring. The burrito was still warm. Eggs, cheese, potatoes, salsa. I ate it in 4 bites, hardly tasting it, just needing the fuel. In the diner bathroom, I washed my face and changed into clean clothes from my duffel bag. My eyes looked hollow in the fluorescent light. I brushed my teeth with the travel toothbrush I kept in my backpack and tried to make my hair look less like I'd slept in a car. Nobody at school could know. Not yet. Not until I figured out what came next. Ms. Levin, my guidance counselor, called me out of study hall third period. I'd been staring at the same page of notes for 20 minutes, seeing nothing but my father's face when he slammed that door. "Marina, sit down," she said, closing her office door. Her desk was covered in college brochures and FAFSA forms. She knew. Somehow, she knew. "I saw the note in your file," she continued. "About your father refusing to provide financial information. That's why your aid application was incomplete." I nodded, afraid to speak. If I started talking, I might start crying, and I couldn't afford to fall apart. Not today. Not ever. "I made some calls this morning," Ms. Levin said. She pulled out a form I'd never seen before. "There's a hardship waiver. It lets you file as an independent student if you can prove your parent is unwilling to support you. I need you to write a one-page statement explaining your situation." My hand started shaking. "Will it work?" "I don't know," she admitted. "But I've already faxed it to the state aid office with a note explaining the circumstances. They'll review it within 48 hours. I took the paper from her, reading the words through blurred vision. Parental refusal to support. Financial independence. Emergency consideration. "Why are you helping me?" I whispered. Ms. Levin smiled sadly. "Because every student deserves a chance. And because I've watched you fight for everything you have. That kind of determination doesn't deserve to be punished." The letter arrived at the diner 2 weeks later. Rosa handed it to me during my shift, and I almost dropped the plate I was carrying. State University seal. Thick envelope. My hands shook as I tore it open in the back room. Full scholarship. Room and board included. Academic Excellence Award plus emergency housing grant. I read it 3 times, not believing the words could be real. Rosa found me crying next to the industrial dishwasher. She didn't ask questions, just pulled me into a hug that smelled like coffee and French fries and kindness. That afternoon, my father walked into the diner. I saw him through the kitchen window, sitting at his usual booth, ordering the meatloaf special like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't thrown his daughter into the street 3 weeks ago. I grabbed the coffee pot and walked to his table. My hand was steady. My voice was steady. Everything inside me was screaming, but I kept it locked down tight. "Coffee?" I asked. He looked up, surprised. "Marina. I didn't know you still worked here." "Where else would I work?" I poured his coffee, not spilling a drop. "I have to pay for things myself now. Remember?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Look, when you're ready to apologize for that financial aid stunt." "I got into State University," I interrupted. "Full scholarship. I start in August." His face went red. "State? That's a welfare school." "It's my school," I said. "Enjoy your lunch." I walked away before he could respond, before the satisfaction on my face could turn into something uglier. Move-in day at State University felt like landing on a different planet. Students everywhere, laughing, taking photos, parents carrying mini fridges and string lights. I pulled into the parking lot alone, my car packed so tight I could barely see out the back window. Nobody helped me carry my boxes up 4 flights of stairs. I didn't mind. I'd gotten good at doing things alone. My roommate hadn't arrived yet, so I picked the bed by the window. The room smelled like fresh paint and possibility. I hung one photograph on the wall above my desk, my mother, who died when I was 7. I didn't have any pictures of my father. Didn't want any. I cried once that night, sitting on the thin dorm mattress, overwhelmed by the silence and the space and the fact that I'd actually made it here. Then I unpacked my books, organized my desk, and buried myself in the orientation materials. The first event was a scholarship dinner for high-achieving students. I wore the only dress I owned, a black one I'd bought at Goodwill for $8. Around me, students talked about their hometowns, their families, their summer vacations. When someone asked where I was from, I said, around here, and changed the subject. The donor who'd funded my emergency grant gave a speech about resilience and second chances. I raised my glass of sparkling cider and made a silent toast to the ghost of my father. Every dollar I earn is proof you were wrong. Freshman summer, I took a janitorial job at County General Hospital. Night shift, 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., cleaning floors and emptying trash bins in the cardiac wing. The pay was better than the diner, and I needed every penny I could save. The work was hard but simple. Mop, wipe, sanitize, repeat. I liked the quiet of the hospital at night, the way the hallways echoed, the soft beeping of machines keeping people alive. But I started noticing things. Families sleeping in waiting room chairs because they couldn't afford hotels. Patients arguing with billing clerks about charges they couldn't understand. A nurse muttering to herself, if only admin cared about people instead of profit margins. One night, I found a woman crying in the hallway outside the cardiac unit. Her husband had just had emergency surgery, and she'd received the estimate, $47,000. Their insurance covered 30%. I don't know what to do, she whispered. We'll lose the house. I didn't have an answer for her. I was 18, mopping floors, barely keeping myself afloat. But something shifted inside me that night. A question formed that wouldn't let go. What if the system could be different? What if someone designed fairness into it instead of cruelty? I started carrying a small notebook in my uniform pocket. When I saw problems, I wrote them down. Unpaid bills. Denied insurance claims. Families drowning in medical debt while hospital executives parked their luxury cars in reserved spots. I didn't know what I'd do with the information. But I knew I'd need it someday. The letter arrived during midterms of sophomore year. Thin envelope, my father's garage logo in the corner. I almost threw it away without opening it. Inside was a bank statement. My college fund, the one my grandmother had set up before she died, showed a balance of $0. Every penny, gone. Transfer authorization signed by Franklin Reed and Doreen Reed. My father had co-signed. He'd helped her steal it. I collapsed in the dorm hallway, the paper crumpling in my fist. My roommate found me there an hour later, still sitting against the wall, staring at nothing. Marina? What happened? They took everything, I whispered. The money my grandmother left. It was supposed to cover 4 years. It's gone. She sat beside me, not touching, just present. What are you going to do? I stood up slowly, my legs shaking. I'm going to fund myself. I'll work more hours. I'll take out loans. I'll do whatever it takes. Why? She asked. Why fight this hard? I looked at her, and I knew my eyes were cold. Because giving up means they win. And I'm not built to lose. That night, I picked up extra shifts at the hospital. I applied for 3 different student positions. I submitted paperwork for emergency loans. I filled out scholarship applications until my hand cramped. And I added my father's name to a list in my notebook, a list of debts that would someday need to be paid. Mrs. Patel found me in the hospital break room at 2 a.m., surrounded by spreadsheets and highlighters. She was the senior accountant for the billing department, a small woman with sharp eyes who never missed anything. You're the cleaning girl, she said, not unkindly. Why are you studying hospital billing codes? I looked up, exhausted. Because nothing makes sense. The charges, the insurance denials, the way people get trapped in debt. There has to be a pattern. She sat down across from me. There is. But it's buried under decades of bureaucracy and profit motive. Then help me find it, I said. Teach me how the system works. Mrs. Patel studied me for a long moment. Then she smiled. You see what nobody else does. Most people look at billing and see numbers. You see people. That's rare. She started meeting me twice a week during my breaks. She showed me how hospital revenue cycles worked, how insurance negotiations happened, how charity care applications got lost in paperwork. She taught me to read financial statements, to spot discrepancies, to understand where money flowed and where it disappeared. Learn the system, she told me. Then fix it. I absorbed everything like I was drowning and she was teaching me to swim. And slowly, an idea started forming. A way to match unpaid medical bills with philanthropic funding. A system that could catch people before they fell through the cracks. It seemed impossible. But I'd survived impossible before. Graduate school was brutal. I worked full-time at the hospital while taking night classes in healthcare administration. I lived on 4 hours of sleep and too much coffee. My professors called me obsessive. They weren't wrong. The algorithm I'd been building for 3 years was finally ready. A program that analyzed patient financial data, matched it against available charitable grants, and automatically processed applications for medical debt relief. It could save hospitals millions in bad debt while helping the people who needed it most. I presented it at my thesis defense. The committee looked bored. It's too ambitious, one professor said. No hospital would implement something this complex. It's naive, another added. Healthcare doesn't work this way. But Dr. Marcus, the only practitioner on the committee, leaned forward. What if it could? After the defense, she pulled me aside. I know someone at Riverbend Hospital. They're drowning in unpaid bills and considering closing their cardiac unit. Would you be willing to pitch this to them? Yes, I said, before she even finished the question. 2 weeks later, I walked into Riverbend's administrative offices wearing my Goodwill suit and carrying a laptop with my entire future coded into it. The CFO listened to my presentation with his arms crossed, clearly skeptical. Then I showed him the numbers. How much they were losing to bad debt. How much they could save while actually helping their community. How the program paid for itself within 18 months. He stared at the screen for a long moment. When can you start? The first year at Riverbend was chaos. I hired 2 former nurses who understood both patient care and billing. We called ourselves Horizon Bridge, a non-profit hybrid that partnered with hospitals to reduce debt while protecting patients. My salary was barely enough to cover rent and student loans. I lived in a studio apartment with furniture from Curb Alerts. I wore the same 3 outfits in rotation. None of it mattered. We processed our first successful application on a Tuesday afternoon. A single mother with cancer, drowning in bills, approved for full coverage through a grant we'd matched her with. I watched her cry on the phone when we told her. That moment made every sleepless night worth it. 6 months in, we'd processed 200 applications. A year in, 1,500. Hospitals started calling us. Philanthropists started writing checks. The program was working. Then the press found out. A local TV crew wanted to do a story. Young woman revolutionizes hospital debt relief. I tried to say no, but Dr. Marcus convinced me the publicity would help our funding. The segment aired on a Thursday evening. My phone exploded. Emails, calls, social media messages. Hospitals asking how to implement our program. Patients thanking us for saving their homes. Donors offering money. And one missed call from a number I'd blocked years ago. My father. He left a voicemail I didn't listen to before deleting it. Whatever he wanted, it was too late. 3 years after launching Horizon Bridge, I stood in Riverbend's new cardiac wing. The space smelled like fresh paint and new equipment. The CFO who'd been skeptical of my pitch now called me a miracle worker. We couldn't have survived without your program, he said, showing me around the renovated facility. The board voted unanimously. We want to name it after you. I stared at him. Name what after me? The wing. The Marina Holt Cardiac and Recovery Wing. Your foundation saved this hospital. We want everyone to know. My throat went tight. I don't need recognition. Maybe not, he said gently. But the next girl's sleeping in her car, working night shifts, thinking the system is too big to change. She needs to see your name on this wall. She needs to know it's possible. The dedication ceremony was small. Just hospital staff, a few donors, some patients we'd helped. They unveiled a bronze plaque with letters 12 inches high. The Marina Holt Cardiac and Recovery Wing. I thought about the girl I'd been at 18, standing in the rain with everything she owned in a duffel bag. If she could see this moment, would she believe it? A photographer from the local paper took pictures. Can we get a quote about your inspiration? I looked at that plaque, my name in bronze, permanent and real. Everyone deserves a second chance. Even the system. The article ran that weekend. My phone started buzzing again. But this time, one call made me freeze. Riverbend Hospital. Emergency contact notification. Franklin Reed had been admitted. I sat in my car outside the hospital for 20 minutes before going inside. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. The cardiac coordinator met me at the entrance. Ms. Holt, your father was brought in an hour ago. Congestive heart failure. He's stable but needs immediate surgery. He listed you as his emergency contact. He what? She checked her tablet. Yes, it's here in his admission paperwork. You're listed as his only family contact. I followed her through corridors I knew by heart. We passed the administration offices where I'd first pitched my program. We passed the waiting room where I'd seen families break down over medical bills. And then we turned into the new wing. My wing. The letters above the entrance were 12 feet high. The Marina Holt Cardiac and Recovery Wing. Brass, gleaming, impossible to miss. The coordinator didn't seem to notice my reaction. He's in room 304. The surgeon will want to speak with you before the procedure. I walked down the hallway in a daze. Every door had a small plaque explaining that patient care in this wing was supported by the Horizon Bridge Foundation. My foundation. My program. My name. And somewhere behind one of these doors, my father was realizing the same thing. Room 304 was at the end of the hall. Through the window, I could see him in the bed, oxygen mask over his face, looking smaller and older than I remembered. He turned his head and saw me. His eyes went wide. Then he looked past me, at the letters above the entrance we'd just walked through. He went completely silent. The surgeon explained the procedure while my father listened from his bed. Valve replacement. High risk due to his years of untreated high blood pressure and smoking. Without surgery, he had maybe 6 months. With it, possibly 5 more years. I'll need to speak with the patient's insurance, the surgeon finished. He doesn't have insurance, Doreen said from the corner. I hadn't noticed her there, looking tired and scared. He let it lapse when the garage closed. The surgeon's face tightened. Then we'll need to discuss payment options. He qualifies for the Horizon Bridge program, I said quietly. Everyone turned to look at me. Anyone admitted to this wing without insurance is automatically screened. If he meets the criteria, the foundation covers it. You're going to pay for his surgery? Doreen asked, confused. The foundation will determine eligibility, I corrected. I don't make those decisions personally. There's a committee. That was true. I'd insisted on that structure specifically to avoid conflicts of interest. The approval team didn't know the patients' names, just their financial situations. My father tried to sit up, the oxygen mask slipping. Marina, I didn't know. Don't, I said. Not now. The surgeon looked between us, clearly sensing the tension. I'll leave you to discuss family matters. But Mr. Reed, the surgery needs to happen within 48 hours. After he left, Doreen approached me. Marina, I know things between you and your father have been difficult, but he's still your father. He needs you. He needed me when I was 18, I replied. When he threw me out in the rain the night before my finals. When he drained my college fund. When he told me I'd never amount to anything. My father's face crumpled. I was wrong. I was so wrong about everything. I left the hospital without saying goodbye. My hands shook as I drove home. Everything I'd built, every success, every award, every recognition, and it all led back to this moment. My father, helpless in a bed, under a sign bearing my name. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, looking at the Horizon Bridge approval dashboard. My father's application was there, flagged for review. His financial situation was dire. No insurance, no savings, no income since the garage closed. By every metric we used, he qualified for full coverage. The irony was suffocating. My phone buzzed. Text from Dr. Marcus. Heard about your father. Are you okay? I typed back, define okay. Need someone to talk to? Need someone to tell me how to be a good person when I don't want to be. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then, being a good person doesn't mean letting people who hurt you off the hook. It means holding boundaries while still doing what's right. I stared at those words for a long time. What was right? Approving his care and proving I was better than him? Letting him face consequences and living with the guilt? There was no good answer. The next morning, the approval committee met. I wasn't allowed in the room, but I waited outside like any other family member. 30 minutes later, the coordinator came out. Mr. Reed's application was approved. Full coverage for the surgery and 3 months of follow-up care. I nodded, unable to speak. Ms. Holt? She touched my arm gently. You built something beautiful here. It helps everyone, even the people who don't deserve it. That's what makes it beautiful. My father's surgery took 6 hours. I waited in the cardiac wing's family room, surrounded by the plaques thanking the Horizon Bridge Foundation for making this care possible. Other families came and went, some crying with relief, others numb with worry. Doreen sat across from me, picking at her nails. We hadn't spoken since I'd arrived. Finally, she broke the silence. I know you hate me. I don't hate you, I said tiredly. I don't think about you at all. I should have stopped him that night. When he threw you out. I looked at her. Really looked at her. She'd aged badly, stress written in every line of her face. Yes. You should have. He was so angry about the FAFSA thing. He kept saying you betrayed him by not listing him as a parent. I tried to tell him it didn't matter, but he wouldn't listen. He didn't want to help me, I said. He wanted to control me. There's a difference. The surgeon appeared in the doorway. Ms. Holt? Your father came through the surgery successfully. He'll be in recovery for a few hours, then we'll move him to ICU overnight. Relief and resentment crashed through me in equal measure. Thank you. After the surgeon left, Doreen stood up. Marina, about the college fund. I need you to know. I know exactly what happened, I interrupted. I have the bank statements. Every transfer, every signature, every lie. So unless you're about to confess and apologize, I don't want to hear it. Her face went white. She grabbed her purse and rushed out. I sat alone in the family room, staring at my own name on the wall, wondering how success could feel so much like being trapped. My father woke up in ICU the next morning. I was there, sitting in the corner chair, working on my laptop. He blinked slowly, confused, then saw me. You stayed. The foundation requires a family member present for high-risk patients, I said, not looking up from my screen. Hospital policy. He was quiet for a moment. Then, why didn't you tell me? About all this. About what you built. You never asked what I was doing. You assumed I'd fail. I was wrong. Yes. You were. I finally looked at him. You were wrong about me, wrong about my potential, wrong about what I deserved. You were wrong about everything that mattered. His eyes filled with tears. I ruined you. No, I said firmly. You tried to ruin me. I ruined your plans by succeeding anyway. A nurse came in to check his vitals. She smiled at me. Ms. Holt, the staff wanted me to thank you again. 3 families on this floor are here because of Horizon Bridge. You're changing lives. After she left, my father stared at me. I don't understand. After what I did, how can you help me? I'm not helping you, I corrected. The system is helping you. The system I built to catch people who fall through cracks. Even people who push their own daughters into those same cracks. He closed his eyes. What do you want from me, Marina? The truth, I said. In writing. An apology to me, a confession about the college fund, and an admission to everyone you told that I was ungrateful or difficult. I want the truth on record. The local paper ran a story 3 days later. Philanthropist's father receives life-saving care at hospital she saved. The reporter had connected the dots, realizing the patient was Franklin Reed, the same man whose garage had closed 2 years ago amid rumors of financial mismanagement. The article included quotes from neighbors who remembered the night he kicked me out. Mrs. Chen across the street told the reporter she'd never forgotten the image of an 18-year-old girl standing in the rain with a suitcase. I always wondered what happened to her, Mrs. Chen said. Now I know. She became someone who helps people. Someone her father clearly wasn't. The story went viral locally. People started digging into my background, finding the old scholarship announcements, the thesis I'd written, the lives Horizon Bridge had changed. They found Doreen's name on the college fund transfers. Someone started a Facebook group called Marina's Army. People posted about medical debt, family betrayal, systems that failed them. They shared the article, tagged their friends, demanded accountability. My father called from his hospital room. Marina, the phone won't stop ringing. People are saying terrible things. Can't you make them stop? No, I said simply. You wanted the truth kept quiet. I wanted it public. Looks like I got what I wanted. I'm writing the apology, he said desperately. Just tell them to leave me alone. Write it because it's right, I replied. Not because you're uncomfortable. That's the difference between us. The hospital chaplain requested a family meeting. I almost refused, but Dr. Marcus convinced me to at least listen. We met in a small conference room, me, my father in a wheelchair, Doreen, and the chaplain. The tension was thick enough to cut. Franklin, you wanted to speak with your daughter, the chaplain prompted gently. My father pulled out a folded paper, his hands shaking. I wrote this. Everything you asked for. He started reading. An admission that he'd kicked me out not because I'd disrespected him, but because I'd dared to pursue education without his permission. A confession that he'd taken the college fund because he was jealous of my grandmother's faith in me. An apology not just for that night in the rain, but for years of emotional manipulation. I told everyone you were difficult, he read, his voice cracking. That you'd turned your back on family. But the truth is, I was threatened by your independence. By your intelligence. By the fact that you were becoming someone I could never be. Tears ran down his face. I'm sorry, Marina. I'm so sorry. I sat there, feeling nothing and everything simultaneously. All these years, I'd imagined this moment. His apology, his recognition of what he'd done. I'd thought it would feel triumphant. Instead, it just felt sad. Thank you, I said finally. I accept your apology. But acceptance doesn't mean reconciliation. He looked up, confused. You can't undo what you did, I continued. You threw away your chance at being my father. But you can be better going forward. Not for me. For yourself. Doreen broke down during the meeting. She admitted she'd pressured my father to drain the college fund, convincing him I didn't deserve money I hadn't earned. She admitted she'd been threatened by the idea of an educated stepdaughter. I was wrong, she sobbed. I was so wrong. Yes, I agreed. You were. And you'll have to live with that. The chaplain cleared his throat. Marina, your father wants to make amends. He's volunteered to participate in the hospital's patient advocacy program, sharing his story with other families about medical debt and financial planning. I looked at my father in surprise. You do that? I owe a debt I can't repay, he said quietly. Not to you. To the people you help. The least I can do is warn others not to make my mistakes. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. The foundation runs financial literacy classes, I heard myself saying. For caregivers and families dealing with medical crises. If you're serious about this, you can help facilitate those. His eyes widened. You'd let me be part of your program? Not my program, I corrected. The community's program. You'd be one volunteer among many. You wouldn't work with me directly. You'd report to the volunteer coordinator. And if you miss a single session or show up unprepared, you're done. I understand. I stood up. Then we have an agreement. As I walked out, I heard him whisper to the chaplain, how did she become so strong? The chaplain's response followed me into the hallway. She became strong because she had to. That's on you. 6 months later, I walked through the Marina Holt Cardiac and Recovery Wing during a routine site visit. The program had expanded to 3 more hospitals. We'd helped over 5,000 families. The model was being studied by healthcare systems across the country. My father was in the community room, leading a financial planning workshop for caregivers. I stood outside the door, listening. I destroyed my relationship with my daughter because of pride, he told the group. Because I couldn't admit when I was wrong. Because I thought control was the same as love. Don't make my mistakes. Someone asked, did she forgive you? He paused. She accepted my apology. But forgiveness isn't something I deserve or expect. The best I can do now is live differently. Be different. Help people the way she helps people. I slipped away before he could see me. We had a working relationship now, professional and distant. He volunteered. I ran the foundation. We exchanged polite emails about scheduling and resources. It wasn't a father-daughter relationship. It never would be. But it was honest. And that mattered. Dr. Marcus found me in the hallway. How are you holding up? I'm okay, I said, and realized I meant it. This isn't the ending I imagined. But it's the right one. Revenge? No. I looked back at the bronze plaque bearing my name. Justice. There's a difference. The 1-year anniversary celebration of the cardiac wing filled the hospital's conference center. Donors, patients, staff, and volunteers gathered to hear impact reports. We'd saved the hospital $3.2 million while helping 700 local families. I gave a speech about systemic change and community care. About how healthcare should be a right, not a privilege. About building bridges instead of walls. Afterward, a young woman approached me. She couldn't have been more than 19, wearing scrubs with a student ID badge. Ms. Holt? I'm Keisha. I work in environmental services here. The night shift crew, I said, recognizing the department. I used to do that job. Her eyes widened. You did? For 2 years during college. Best education I ever got. She hesitated, then pulled out a notebook. I've been writing down problems I see. With billing, with how families get trapped. I wondered if maybe, I don't know, if maybe you'd look at it sometime? I took the notebook, feeling time fold in on itself. I saw myself at 18, carrying my own notebook, asking my own questions, being told I was too ambitious. I'll do better than look at it, I said. How do you feel about internships? The foundation is hiring for summer positions. Tears filled her eyes. Really? Really? Email me your resume. And Keisha? Keep writing things down. The people who notice problems are the ones who solve them. I watched her walk away, clutching the notebook like it held the future. Maybe it did. My father's health stabilized over the following months. He moved into a small apartment near the hospital, downsized from the house that had foreclosed after the garage failed. Doreen had left him, moving back to her sister's place in another state. He didn't contest it. I saw him occasionally at volunteer events. He'd lost weight, looked healthier, spoke differently. Less aggressive. More humble. Age and consequences had softened something in him that pride had kept rigid for years. One afternoon, he approached me after a training session. "Marina, could we talk? Just for a minute?" We walked to the hospital cafeteria. I bought coffee. He ordered nothing, just sat across from me with his hands folded. "I've been in therapy," he said. "The hospital has a program for patients dealing with chronic illness." The therapist helped me understand something. I waited, not making it easy for him. "I was angry at your mother for dying," he continued quietly. "Angry at you for looking like her, for being smart like her, for reminding me every day what I'd lost. I took that anger out on you. For years." My throat tightened. "That's not an excuse." "No," he agreed. "It's an explanation. Not an excuse. I'm telling you because you deserve to know it wasn't about you. It was always about my failure to process grief." I stared into my coffee. Does knowing that change anything? For me? Yes. I'm working on it. For you? He shook his head. Probably not. The damage is done. We sat in silence for a moment. Then he said, "I'm proud of you. I know I don't have the right to be. But I am." "Thank you," I said carefully. "But I didn't do this for your pride. I did it despite your doubt." He nodded slowly. "I know. That makes it even more impressive." 2 years after the wing's dedication, I received an invitation to speak at a national healthcare conference. The topic was innovative funding models for medical debt relief. Horizon Bridge had become a case study in sustainable healthcare reform. I stood on that stage in front of 800 administrators, insurers, and policymakers. I told them about the night I slept in my car. About mopping hospital floors and seeing people destroyed by bills. About building a system that valued people over profit. "Revenge is easy," I said. "When someone hurts you, the instinct is to hurt them back. But revenge doesn't change systems. It doesn't help the next person facing the same crisis." I clicked to a slide showing the Marina Holt wing. This isn't revenge. This is transformation. Taking pain and turning it into purpose. Taking betrayal and turning it into bridges. The audience gave me a standing ovation. Afterward, dozens of hospital systems wanted to partner with us. Insurance companies wanted to integrate our model. Philanthropists wanted to fund expansion. But the moment that mattered most came from a woman who approached me during the reception. She was maybe 50, wearing a hospital CEO badge. 20 years ago, my husband kicked me out during my nursing degree, she said. Told me I'd never make anything of myself. I'm running a 300-bed hospital now. Your story reminded me why I fought so hard. We stood there, 2 women who'd been underestimated, who'd turned doubt into determination. No words needed. That was the real victory. Not proving my father wrong. Proving every dismissed, discarded person right. On the 5th anniversary of the wing's dedication, the hospital commissioned a new plaque. They installed it in the main entrance, where every patient, every visitor, every staff member would see it. The Marina Holt Cardiac and Recovery Wing founded to protect those once left with nothing. For every 18-year-old sent into the rain, may you find a door with your name on it. I stood in front of it, reading those words over and over. My father stood beside me, keeping a respectful distance. You did it, he said quietly. Everything I said you couldn't do. Yes, I agreed. I did. Can I ask you something? He looked older now, grayer, smaller. Do you ever think about what could have been different? If I'd supported you from the beginning? I considered the question carefully. Sometimes. But then I realized that struggle made me notice things privileged people miss. It made me care about systems, not just individual success. If you'd handed me everything, I might never have built this. So you're saying my cruelty was accidentally good? No, I said firmly. Your cruelty was cruelty. What I built was good despite it, not because of it. Don't confuse the two. He nodded, accepting the distinction. We stood there together, not as father and daughter, but as two people connected by history and separated by choices. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. It was something else entirely, acknowledgement without absolution. My phone buzzed. Text from Keisha, who now ran 3 of our satellite programs. Another hospital just signed on. We're at 12 locations now. I smiled and typed back, that's 12 more doors with our names on them. As I walked out of the hospital, past the plaque bearing my name, past the families receiving care they could afford, past the volunteers changing lives one conversation at a time, I thought about that girl standing in the rain 7 years ago. I wished I could tell her that the cold wouldn't last forever. That the betrayal would become fuel. That doors slam but walls have windows, and windows become doors if you're willing to build them yourself. Revenge wasn't the goal. It never had been. Justice was the goal. The kind that doesn't just settle scores but changes the scoreboard entirely. I got in my car and drove toward the Foundation's new office, where 20 staff members were processing applications, where hundreds of families would find relief today, where the system I'd imagined while mopping floors at 2 a.m. had become real and sustainable and replicable. My father had meant to destroy me that rainy night. Instead, he'd freed me to become someone he never imagined possible. Someone who built doors instead of slamming them. Someone whose name meant hope instead of hurt. Someone who learned that the best revenge is building something so beautiful that even the people who doubted you can't help but see it. And every time they see it, they remember what they lost when they underestimated you. That's not cruelty. That's just truth, permanent and bronze and impossible to ignore. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What does family mean to you? Please share below and subscribe to this channel for more stories like mine.